Mm. Hey, good afternoon. How is everybody? Good to see you all. Good to be here. You know, I was going to just sail into the weekend with just some more Greyhawk talk, and I hope there's time to get to that today. And I thought about how to approach today's actual topic with with respect to doing a video. And here's the thing. Let me lay this out for you guys. I honestly didn't know how to address this. There's a lot of, look, just don't pay him any attention. Just pretend that haters and outsiders don't matter. And there's certainly a lot of merit to that approach of just not giving any fucks. We talked the other night on Wednesday night when I had Kyle on about this stupid Fago the Clown thing. Now, I want to open this up. You have to build up to a good frothing rage. You don't just put a pot of cold water on your stove and turn it up to high and it starts to boil, right? Right. So, hey Adam, how are you? Now, it takes a while for things to start to boil. So, let's get there in due course. I guess there will be a little bit of rules discussion today leading into things. And that's where we'll start, I think. Hey, IR, good to see you. In the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, and first edition AD&D is the only D&D that I play. The occasional rare game of original D&D, just because most people don't want to fart around with OD&D from a standpoint of having to go to a number of disparate sources to get all the rules together. And I, as a DM, am certainly right there. So I play AD&D. It is an improvement on and a summation of a lot of stuff that's scattered across the original 3 booklets, 3 supplements, chainmail, and multiple issues of the Strategic Review and early Dragon magazine, and even some things that aren't in there as far as rules clarifications. Okay. So I don't play second edition D&D because it's bowdlerized, it's sanitized, it was made for blue hair Christian moms, and still wasn't good enough, by the way. Nice job, TSR. You wrecked AD&D by trying to fix AD&D so that moms will put it in their shopping cart at Kmart. And of course, ripping out Gary Gygax's influences was your secondary mission. The marching orders that TSR management gave the writers. So first edition AD&D it is. In first edition AD&D, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there is an index of all of the monsters that are in the monster manual. It lists important information, vital stats for the monsters. Now, as I have discussed before, 2-hit armor class 0, THAC 0. Which, why people say Thaco instead of Thakaz is, I don't know. But it's 2-hit armor class 0. 2-hit armor class 0 is listed there as a baseline so that the DM will have an idea going forward of about what the monster needs to hit armor class 0 and above, not below. And it doesn't work below for armor classes -1, -2, -3, -4, all the way up to -10 because of repeating 20s. So for the kids in the class who weren't here when I discussed what repeating 20s were and what they meant, a repeating 20 in first edition AD&D on the 2-hit charts, which by the way is what you use. The really slow people who can't do math and think that early editions of AD&D is broken because of Thaco. You have a chart that you look at. There is no math. There is no formula. It's a chart. It's a table. You can take a highlighter and go down your class and level. And there's all the numbers you need to hit. You don't need to do math. If you see that, let's say to hit AC -2, you need a 20. And then you look up and say, okay, well, what do I need to hit my AC -3? Oh, I also need 20. Okay, so I'm swinging on AC -3, and I roll a d20, and it comes up a 19. Ah, but I'm an elf, so I get +1 to hit with a sword. So that means I hit. No. Repeating 20s indicate that you need to roll a natural 20 in addition to any other bonuses. It has to be a natural 20. And if you get down to armor classes that are low enough that you see, well, I need a 21 to hit, that means a natural 20 in addition to other bonuses. So 2-hit armor class 0, first of all, it's not used for characters. It never should have been used for characters. It's not a method of determining whether or not a character can hit a given armor class. It doesn't. It breaks down if you're using repeating 20s, which if you're playing first edition AD&D, you're going to be using repeating 20s. You're not going to be using a formula. There's no magic formula. Look at the cotton picking table. It's right there. Okay. So we've determined that 2-hit armor class 0 isn't a thing, and it shouldn't have been a thing. But 2-hit armor class 0 became a thing. It was mixed in with later lousy versions of basic D&D written by Frank Mentzer. It was made the core mechanic of combat for 2E because, honestly, looking at a chart, oh my God, what is this? The time of Charlemagne? Having to look at a chart? Or just have the DM tell you what you needed to roll? No, let's stop and do calculations. So it became a thing. Some people liked it. Some people hated it. With the advent of 3rd edition, they had their own ridiculous fucking mechanic in the D20 system. And the kids who wailed and gnashed their teeth and invented these strawman arguments of needing a graphing calculator or, a scientific calculator to try and figure out whether or not they hit, because negative numbers are hard. They were overjoyed. Now, again, I never played 2nd edition AD&D, except for rare occasions with friends who insisted that's what they wanted to play. So 2-hit armor class 0, I missed that train, all right? And I'm glad that I did, because I know how to read. I can look at a chart. I can look at a table. I can look at a number in a column. And I can figure shit out. I figured shit out from the get-go. Uh-oh. We're having a bit of a problem with Facebook, but if you're watching this video now on Facebook because it was linked to later, there was a technical problem with Facebook. So, I'm sorry. So, 2-hit armor class 0, such as it was never a concern of mine, and it was never a point of gatekeeping. And now we're starting to come to it. I don't give a shit about 2-hit armor class 0. It was never part of my D&D. It's never been part of my D&D, and it will never be part of my D&D, except for a notional mention in the Dungeon Master's Guide. That's it. That's all. Share this link. It was never part of it. Wizards of the Coast, the people who owned the name Dungeons and Dragons. And I want to be very, 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 very clear about that. They own the name Dungeons and Dragons. They don't own the soul of classic D&D. They don't own the spirit of classic D&D. Those are things that they didn't create, that they can't create, because they're all a bunch of non-creative garbage. They thought it would be cute. They thought it would be funny for this little Thaco the Clown thing. Now, I had heard about it. I had seen the illustration. I didn't give two shits about it. I thought it was stupid people being stupid. And then I realized that it's not like naming Perrinland after Jeff Perrin. It's not like, Gary going through and either roasting or exalting his friends by naming spells after them and so on, and magic items and etc. that he named after friends and family in 1st edition AD&D. Because apparently, Thaco the Clown is a shot at all old school gamers. He keeps a gate locked and despises children and doesn't allow anyone to touch his belongings. You fuckers in Seattle. You absolute pieces of shit that pretend to be a role-playing game company. You pack of degenerates who exist strictly as an organelle that funnels money into Hasbro's bank account. Don't kid yourselves about what you are. You're a money printing machine, and a bad one, I should point out. A bad one. You had a license to print money with Star Wars and Pokemon, and you lost them both. If I was the management of Hasbro back then, a decade plus ago, when you fucking bunglers dropped the ball and lost two incredible intellectual properties, I would have gone in and I would have fired every fucking one of you. Wizards of the Coast would exist only as an impressum on board games made by Hasbro staff, and every single one of you shitheads would be gone. You'd be out of a fucking job. You'd be back to working as baristas and copy editors for City Rags, crying into your home campaigns. Every one of you. That's where you'd be now if I had been Hasbro management when you screwed the pooch. Yet, in spite of that, for reasons that I still can't fucking fathom, you keep marching zombies out with D&D tattooed on their forehead, and ever increasingly irrelevant people keep falling down and kissing your fucking feet with every release that you slap the D&D brand on. And even people that I thought I knew and I thought I respected give you attention and respect and praise. Oh, look, Tales from the Yawning Portal. It's classic modules reprinted, Bill. Mallory Barwell, I have no idea who you are. You don't like it? Leave. In fact, you know what? Here, let me just... There. You can not type for a while. It's the first time I've ever had to do that, but I think that's probably just a bot in the chat. But Wizards, you have created nothing. All you did was buy a name. And all you have done is sow discord. I get it. I get it. Wizards has fired me as a customer. I get it. I completely understand. I completely understand Wizards of the Coast. I'm fired as a customer. Let me explain something to you. I have never, ever in my life turned anyone away from my table. I have never ordered anybody away from my table. I have never said, go away. You're not the right this or that or the other. Never in my life have I gate kept. I've gate kept all right. Because I want people at my table who want to play D&D. But that's it. That's the extent of it. I want people at my table who are interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons. I don't care if they've played 4th edition their entire lives. I don't care if they were born in 2000 and thought that D&D started with 3rd edition. They'd never heard of AD&D or OD&D or basic D&D. Oh yes, I've gatekept some. But never in the way that you think. The people I've kept away from my table, the people I'm keeping away from my table, the people like that cocksucker Daniel Fox, Mr. Zweihander. Yeah, I saw your little post, Danny. Yeah, I've kept people like that away from my table who clearly don't care about D&D. Are just there with an agenda. If you care about playing D&D and you want to sit down and play, then play. I don't want game tourists. I don't want people who are interested in doing selfies. I don't want people who are just there to take pictures of my table and put up on Instagram. Hashtag I'm a gamer. Such a nerd, y'all. I fought against that. That I have gate kept away. Mike Carr, in the introduction for the Player's Handbook, said, diversity of players is what has led to the popularity of Dungeons and Dragons. Diversity of players. He wrote that in 1978 in the introduction to the Player's Handbook. Well prior to the birth, and I mean the birth, the actual coming out of mom, birth of any of those people at Wizards of the Coast. I'll read it to you. Right here. I will give you the full and estéreo reading. This is the foreword. Players, and more players. That's what comprises the D&D phenomenon. And phenomenal it is, as the audience for this, the granddaddy of all role-playing games, continues to expand. D&D players happily come in all shapes and sizes, and even a fair number of women are counted amongst those who regularly play the game, making Dungeons and Dragons somewhat special in this regard. The widespread appeal cuts across many boundaries of interest and background, which means that D&D players are marked by a wide range of diversity. In fact, one could easily use the analogy that there are as many types of D&D players as there are D&D monsters. After that, draw your own conclusions. There are unquestionably fast players, slow players, clever players, foolish players, cautious players, reckless players, generous players, greedy players, friendly players, and obnoxious players. As diverse as this melange of enthusiasts is, they all seem to share one commonality: a real love for Dungeons and Dragons and a devotion that few other games can claim. This remarkable loyalty is a great factor in the game's explosion of popularity, and Dungeons and Dragons has become a gaming cult, as avid D&Ders have ceaselessly spread the gospel, enrolling new players in expanding groups which just seem to grow and grow. Diversity has always been a thing in D&D. Gatekeeping has never been a thing in D&D. Wizards of the Coast. If you see a problem with people, then you've done a bad job as a company managing your IP, managing your brand. You've done a poor job. And the blame lies squarely on you, not on guys like me. I have never sent anyone away from my table for any reason whatsoever. Anyone who showed up and was interested in playing classic D&D. And as far as children go, my own kids I have gamed with. Go listen to Raised on D&D. It's my buddy's Nick's podcast. Go listen to Raised on D&D. It is nothing other than families and gaming. And yes, people who play classic D&D with their families. I have had massive spreads of Dwarven Forge out on a table before. And I've had parents and kids come up, and the kids ask if they can pick the pieces up and handle them. And I just tell them, just be careful with it and don't drop it. Same with miniatures. And the kids who don't understand that are usually too young. And I'm talking toddler. I'm talking like less than 3 years old. And you no more let your kid grab, a miniature that they would potentially pop in their mouths off of a gaming table than a chess piece, than, a glass Christmas ornament that they might break. Sorry, I got a message here. So, what I'm saying, guys, ultimately is this. If that's what Wizards of the Coast thinks, if that's really and truly where Wizards of the Coast is at, as far as me as a customer, as far as anyone in the old school community as a customer, fuck them. I'm done. I have been circumspect in my opinion of Wizards of the Coast before. I said, maybe they can do good, maybe they can do bad. And let's be very clear about something here, all right? There is this reductive counterargument that says, well, if you were offended by it, maybe you're the person they're talking about. I'm offended by it because they are blanket casting all old schoolers that way. All right? I pride myself on the fact that I can go to an event at my favorite local gaming shop, Gods and Monsters, down on International Drive. That I can go there, I can set up a D&D game, and I can play first edition AD&D, and I can draw a huge crowd of people who want to sit and play. They have no presumptions. If they're folks who played old school D&D, then it's a breath of fresh air for them. It's like, hey, it's just like I used to play. If it's people who've never played old school D&D, then their attitude is, hey, wow, I didn't know it was this good. But there's always been a degree of enjoyability. Wizards of the Coast is attempting to poison that well. I have taken little jabs at old school games in good fun over the last 20 plus years. All right? I stupidly participated in, but more than not, sat back and watched arguments over which edition was best. And watch people get ugly and white-knuckled about it. But the reality remains, those times never should have become the standard, and here we are. I honestly thought Wizards of the Coast could not belly crawl any lower than the ad campaign for 4th edition. I really honestly didn't think they could get more insulting on their face and piss on older editions harder than they did with that ad campaign, but I guess I'm wrong. So my question to anyone who might be associated with Wizards of the Coast, my question to anyone whose consideration is that Wizards of the Coast is a fine company and 5th edition is a fine product, and they salute it and they support it and they buy it because they want to keep the coffers of Hasbro lined with their money. My question to all of you is this. The 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons is practically upon us. It'll be 2 years away this January. What exactly the fuck is Wizards of the Coast supposed to be honoring? Because I got some news for you. There's still people who play original D&D. There's still people who play first edition AD&D and second edition AD&D. I neither know nor care if there's still a large crowd of third and third and a half and fourth edition players. Now, 5th edition is soon to go the way of the dodo. They're releasing, I don't know, another version of D&D. So, you know, I couldn't tell you what wheels they'll be crushed under. But in 2024, what will they be celebrating? What exactly will they be celebrating? You're garbage people, Wizards of the Coast. You're absolute garbage. Sorry for the dead air. I'm just pissed off about this. I'm gonna look at chats. Michael Connor says, I saw the beginning of trouble for TSR. Look, you're talking about Gary used he or she, him or her, they, them. All right. Don't worry about something that TSR did 30 years ago, Michael. Just don't break yourself in half, because, and again, D&D has always been diverse. Role-playing games have always been diverse. And I think, Chris, Michael is saying that diversity has been a hallmark, not the hallmark. He's not saying it's the hallmark, it's a hallmark. And Mike Carr, like I just read, Mike Carr says diversity was a hallmark. Lest we wind up talking past each other. I'm angry about this. I can take a joke. But Wizards has been on very thin ice for a long time. As far as paying homage to and honoring older versions of D&D, no, they've just been strip mining it. I have this. Yeah, I exactly, Michael and Chris. I think it's a hallmark, not the hallmark, because again, you know, in the player's handbook, you know, Mike Carr talks about the diversity of players. Back on June 2nd, 1978. Hey, Aurora. How are you, dear? Aurora Williams. Aurora plays in my Monday night game. She is... Aurora's character has the unique distinction of not having been killed yet. Of all the characters who died and have had to be resurrected, Aurora's not on that list. You know what? I'm glad. I don't want to put Aurora on the spot. I know she's in the chat. Fire alarm woke me. Oh no. So for the yeah, it's well, I mean, it's 10 o'clock out on the West Coast. You're awake now. I'm glad you're awake. It makes me happy that you're here in the chat. Because I don't see the humor in this. Yet. Yeah, I haven't killed her character yet. I don't gatekeep. What? This joke. I mean, Did the writer of this book fall into some kind of time portal and wind up in 1978 at Gen Con amongst some nasty party-killing DMs and decided to come home and say, well, this is how old D&D was? Does WotC not own older editions? Couldn't they just sell older editions to those who wanted them, even put out new models? Okay. Yes, and yes, they could, Chris, but they're not going to. That they aren't going to. The closest thing to a release of a module for older editions that we would ever see from WotC, and we have already seen from WotC, is the boxed version of Art and Arcana that got released that includes the original folio edition of Tomb of Horrors and the Tomb of Rahotep. And I've covered those before on the stream. But I mean, you know, it's $100 set. It's not, you know, it's not, it's not just something you can, you know, you can just run out to the FLGS and buy. You can, and I think you should, if you have a favorite local gaming store and you don't own Art and Arcana, the box set, and they have it, buy it from them, support them. It's got a module in it. It's an actual gaming product. It's not just a coffee table book that you leaf through a few times in your life and then are like, that's nice, I have that. It's got an actual gaming module in it. But as far as I can just go buy one, no. You can buy them online. You can go to Wizards of the Coast, what is DM's Guild, and under edition, go to first edition, where you'll be greeted with a content warning. You can buy the PDFs and you can get them print on demand. I will warn you about print on demand right now. I have seen some discussions that say that print on demand is 5 to 10 weeks behind schedule right now. So if you order a pod that would normally take 2 to 4 weeks to get to your house, it may not be here until after the first of the year because they get them printed overseas, which makes absolutely no sense to me. No sense whatsoever. But it's Wizards of the Coast. They don't make any sense at all. Yeah, lots of supply chain stuff, and it's impact. It's not just Wizards of the Coast. There's a lot of hobby related stuff that it is impacting. I can't blame them for that. I can unleash a lot of bile at WotC today, but I can't blame them for supply chain problems. Yep. Aurora's got the right of it. It's happening with books right now too. Like books that aren't role-playing game books, like novels, textbooks, that sort of thing, which is a shame. So, no, that's not true. That Michael saying they would owe money to old creators, most likely if they reprint older editions. 99.9% of that stuff was done on a work for hire basis. Even Gary's own stuff, sales, like, okay, you can get this cover version of the Monster Manual from Drive Through RPG, RPG Now. Although I don't think RPG Now exists anymore. I think it's just Drive Through. They merged. And D&D Classics, which goes through RPG Now. You can get that, but like they don't pay Errol Otis or the estates of Dave Trampier or the estates of David Sutherland or the Gygax estate. They don't get much. All that stuff was work for hire. Any payment was paid out. It's like I wrote The Lost Crypt, and I did get paid. Trust me, I'm not about to go on a polemic against my friends over at Frog God Games. I love them. But they paid me for The Lost Crypt. Now, if tomorrow, I don't know, Games Workshop bought Frog God Games and continued to crank out The Lost Crypt, they could do that and not pay me. All right, I was paid work for hire, and I got it, and it was sent to me. The funds were given to me. I don't have a % on sale basis. I do have a contract like that with my buddy Don at Hellebard Games for some of the stuff that I have done with Hellebard Games. That's work for hire. That I will always have that money coming to me. But WotC sells the PDFs of classic D&D products, and people can get them print on demand. Paizo is no better than WotC. Yeah. Yeah, IR. Anybody but Games Workshop. I'll tell you a story. This is something that I found out just reading up historically, and Jim Ward confirmed this. When Games Workshop first started out in the 1980s and they were starting to get popular, Gary approached the owners of Games Workshop and said, "We want to make you guys TSR UK and buy Games Workshop." And they said no. Can you imagine how different the world would be if Warhammer Fantasy Battles and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay had all wound up under the umbrella of TSR? How much more different the hobby landscape would be if the people that made 40K and the people who made Warhammer Fantasy Battle and so on and etc. had bought or had been bought by TSR rather than the other way around. Well, Games Workshop didn't buy TSR. That's not what I'm saying. Rather than not. GW is evil, but they're clownishly evil, in my opinion. I mean, there's nothing I can do or say about this slap in the face, this turd in the punch bowl that Wizards has delivered. It just makes it harder for me to go out there and keep AD&D popular when stuff like this happens. It is a direct insult to me as a gamer and as a dad, as someone who is like Johnny D&D Seed. I will go around spreading the good word of classic D&D wherever I can go. I take my show on the road and I play and I have a bunch of people at a store come and sit down at my table and I play, and they say, what are we playing? First edition AD&D, and most people just go blink, blink. I've never played old D&D. But WotC apparently wants to push the idea that this kind of D&D is wrong and bad and old. And it's old because it's wrong and bad. I mean, you want to talk about gatekeeping? This shit right here is jumping between people who might want to play classic Dungeons and Dragons and the game table. We're not the ones gatekeeping, all right? You know, you people flying the banner of you know, oh, it's our D&D now. You know, okay, boomer is it's just it's like some upside down mirror world. I can't even I can't even begin to explain how how completely backwards the crowd over at WotC have gotten things. If this were just some rule, all right, if they had said no more Jack Vance style magic, no more Vancian magic, boo, it's gone. You know, well, I think that's a mistake, but it doesn't really impact my game. Oh yeah, well, we're any alignment can be a paladin. We're just making a paladin a class with no restrictions. Okay, all right. Well, that doesn't impact my game. That doesn't affect me. That doesn't inform my game anymore. We're going to go ahead with the idea that you're bad because you play old role-playing games and you stop people from having fun. You, old school gamer, you're bad. That's the new rule in our D&D. Fucking really? Really? You know, I'm supposed to be the gatekeeper. You know, I'm not the one who showed up at the gaming table in 2016 and decided that D&D was the thing for the beautiful people to be seen doing. All right? That wasn't me. I'm not the one who's marginalized an entire group of people in this hobby. That's not us. That's not me. That's no old school gamer I've ever known. Our rules are sit down, shut up, and play. If you can get past those gates, you can play old school D&D just fine. The only clowns here that I see, the only evil clowns who don't want people touching things, are Wizards of the Coast. Because wizards, you sure as fuck don't want people touching classic D&D, do you? You certainly don't want people giving you a little poke in social media, do you? What a stack of assholes. Michael says, GW keeps smacking themselves in the face with frying pans. Yeah, but the problem is those frying pans are made of solid gold and they're filled to the top with dollars to cushion the blow, so. Michael says, I abandoned WotC and Paizo years ago. Artel Saurian and Hero Games for me. Yeah, I don't... And whatever. Cyberpunk is an okay game. I haven't played it in decades. Hero system. I have said this before, and I'll say it again. As someone who's played Hero system for decades and decades, I haven't played it in decades and decades, but I have played Hero system off and on for 30 years or more. It is the most complete and effective superhero role-playing game system ever devised, and it's awful, and I don't recommend anyone play it. I've played it for 30 years and enjoyed every minute of it, and it's terrible. We'd be here for another 2 hours, me explaining how bonkers hero games, the hero system is. I mean, it does everything, but at a cost. And imagine telling someone you want a new computer, and they show up at your house with a factory new, a brand new computer, but it's a PDP 1175 running APL, and they didn't give you the system password. And like you said, okay, I want 16 gigs of memory in the new computer you're bringing me. And they bring you a stack of breadboard and just wires. What the hell is that? Well, that's your memory. Oh, you might have to do a little bit of soldering. That's Hero System. The brick of dice. I'm looking at a bag of dice over there. One of the guys I used to play Hero System with back in the day, and I'm putting the WotC thing in the rearview mirror now. Rant over. I'm gonna go get this. And watch. The thumbnail will be my empty chair or like my fat gut in profile as I go to get this. Hang on. I want to show this off. Hold on. All right, I'm back. So this is my this is my Hero System dice bag. This is the big man store. There's a big and tall shop that my buddy Jason Murray worked at for a long time, and they had these ditty bags. They'd put like cologne and stuff in them, but he grabbed us all a bag each. So I've had this bag for 30 something years, and this is all, oh my god, it's tearing apart as I'm holding it. That's a shame. But this is all full of D6s. And that no, I'm not going to dump it out. It'll take me forever to clean them up. But this is my Hero System bag for D6s. Now, Aurora, I've had fun with Hero System also. I said in my disclaimer, I love Hero System, but it's awful. You can't deny that it's awful. Would you sit someone down and try and teach them Hero System? Crown Royal dice bags. I have a regulation Crown Royal dice bag actually over there. I do have a regulation Crown Royal dice bag. Hanging over yonder. I don't know if Michael is saying yes to, would you sit someone down and try and teach them Hero System? That bag of dice is enough to fire one round of minigun and Shadowrun. Yes, and I know people who play like the Storyteller, the vampire system, who have like bags like this of D10s, which is crazy. That's like crazy land. That is crazy world talk right there. Hero system became simplified to me. What the hell D6 is that? Is this anyone's? Is this anybody's D6? Because I have red and black. Some variation on red or red and black are my dice in here, but I've got some blues and some greens in there too. I moved the green D6s over to playing D&D with because they are excellent character rollers. Clearly, I am in the minority of thinking that hero system is not user friendly. But I mean, I'll say this: hero system is the all singing, all dancing, do everything role playing game system. There are some games like my buddy Jeff, and Aurora knows Jeff. Aurora games with Jeff and Monday night, and Jeff and I tease each other ceaselessly about old gaming times because I've known Jeff as long as I've been playing hero system. Jeff is a hero system junkie, and in the past, before I dragged him kicking and screaming, excuse me. Before I dragged Jeff kicking and screaming into heroes into playing AD&D, when we were in touch over the years, and my love of AD&D was being rekindled in the mid '90s, and he was up in Seattle, I would talk to him from time to time. Because I actually have an AD&D book that used to belong to Jeff. He gave me his unexpurgated copy of Deities and Demigods. It is the last copy I have. I have had 14 copies of Deities and Demigods. Only one of them was an unexpurgated version, or was the expurgated version. But all the others had the Cthulhu mythos and the Lovecraft mythos and the Michael Moorcock mythos in them. All of them were that way, and I've sold all of them off over the years. But the copy that I have belonged to Jeff. So Jeff did play AD&D back in the day, but I'd call in and say, yeah, I'm playing D&D, and I'd talk to him, about stuff, and there'd be this pause. And then he would launch into how he would do that in Hero System. And it just forever. We played... I'm going off on an old story, old story, but we played a fantasy hero game back in the day. I have a specific gaming itch I need scratched when I fantasy game. And I'm not blaming Hero System for not scratching it any more than I am blaming any other system. When I want to play AD&D, I want to play AD&D. When I want to play something else, I want to play something else. Saying I want to play AD&D, and then somebody saying, well, yeah, but, I'll run a fantasy campaign, just, it'll be in Hero System. Look, Hero... And this is true of MERP, it's true of Rolemaster, it's true of RuneQuest, it's true of Harn, it's true of many other systems that aren't D&D. I like a leveled system and a class system. I like fire and forget magic, and I like the fact that a 6th level ranger can walk into a room full of kobolds, draw his sword, and kill all of them in 2 rounds. 30 kobolds, a few player characters, is 1 encounter in a night of playing D&D, and you then move on. In Rollmaster or MERP, that is multiple sessions. In Hero System, it is potentially multiple sessions. And I'm not pissing on Hero System. I have had some fantastic times in Hero System. The last time we played, was it the last time we played it? It was a few jumps back. We tend to play short, brutal Hero System games with superheroes. We played a mid-power, which is like 175 point Marvel street level superheroes. And I played a street level Punisher, the John Bernthal from the 2 miniseries Punishers. And I played Frank Castle as an absolutely ruthless and absolutely merciless killer of bad guys. And we did Hero System, and I had scads of fun. It's like, okay, the street punks are hiding behind the van in the warehouse. All right, where are the other characters? Well, they're over here and over here. Frank pulls a white phosphorus grenade out off of his webbing, pulls the pin, and throws it under the van. You know, I just... It's like one of them survives. He drags out, fights over, where's Fisk? We don't work for Fisk. Who do you work for? I don't know. We're just low-level flunkies. Blap! He didn't know anything. And I mean, that was, you know, it's good visceral fun, again, but it's not... Hero System doesn't scratch my itch on the fantasy front. I guess I'm just a genre-specific kind of guy. Hero System is good for superhero games. Power frameworks are very tough to get in Hero System. I mean, the one, and it's taken me almost the entire 30 years to figure out, the one that I understand is the multi-power. I can do anything with a multi-power. I know people who are absolutely positively, no, elemental control. You want elemental control? I can do all of this stuff with elemental control. I can be Iron Man with elemental control. I can be Batman with elemental control. I can be, Thor with elemental control. Just don't even bother with multi-power. I have tried to get my head around elemental control power frameworks, and it just, phew. And again, I've played it for 30 years. I appreciate the flexibility. Guys, again, I'm saying it's a bad game, but I love it. Okay. I would not have played it I would have said, yeah, I played it once long ago and it was shit and I never bothered with it. It's just, it just is what it is. I mean, I know there's people in my Monday night AD&D game who don't love AD&D the way I love AD&D. But the verve of it, look, I'm gonna put Aurora on the spot, because she once told me that I was the best GM, one of the best GMs. I don't remember the exact context. So Aurora, if you're still listening and want to rush in to correct me, I will absolutely accept that. But I took that as a great compliment, because I know there's a bunch of people in my game who aren't going to act like, if I just next week said, look, guys, I'm packing it in. That's it. Hey, that's not going to happen. But if I did, they wouldn't then say, well, damn, I'm going to go find another first edition AD&D DM to play. It's just at our table. It works really well. And I keep my players, I keep them happy. Have I ever tried Torg? Torg, come out of the spaceship, Torg. I'm sorry. Every time I see Torg, I can't help but think of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Oh my God. Yes, Hero is all about the build and the concept. I have and have. Okay, so I played some D6 Star Wars from West End Games Star Wars. Does Torg use the same system? Because if so, kind of. If not, then no, I have not played Torg. That scene with Momar. Torg, come out of the spaceship. But I liked D6 Star Wars. Just again, handfuls of D6s. And to be fair, you can play OD&D with just D6s. You don't need D20s to play 3-book OD&D. The main combat system draws from chainmail, and basically chainmail uses D6s, so everything is just down the line. I didn't get it's just down the line D6s. I didn't get chainmail until the early 2000s, and of course it's published by TSR, and I'm used to D8s, D6s, D12s, it's so on and etc. So I don't really know, what I was thinking, but when I got the chainmail rules and it's talking about throw a die, I'm like, throw what die? D4, D12, D6, what? When chainmail comes out, they didn't have those. Yeah, I know the setting of Torg is very like Rifts in that. What are my thoughts on GURPS? GURPS is one of those things that it seems like a lot of gamers who bought more gaming stuff than I did always seem to have tons of GURPS books, or at least a few GURPS books. But I never met anyone who played GURPS heavily. I have a couple of proto-GURPS games on my shelf, and some of my departed friends' gaming estate, for lack of a better term, that I have in boxes over here, are GURPS books. Rifts. I've played Rifts once with Rusty as DM. And Rifts, I think Aurora's trying to get a rise out of me. Rifts is a good game. I enjoyed it for what it was. GURPS is another handful of D6's games, too. Yeah, people use GURPS books as supplements for whatever system they're using. Exactly. I should go through the GURPS books that I have one day just to see if they're anything. But GURPS sprang forth from Steve Jackson Games' 2D6 system. Car Wars and Ogre and Lords of Under-Earth are basically the progenitors of Hero System, of GURPS System. I'm sorry, there's just a bunch of stuff on the screen. I'm all out of sorts. I've been ranting today. A GURPS character was a Harlem Globetrotter and all his combat stuff doing fake outs. And that sounds wonderful. That sounds absolutely wonderful. Yep. I should do an unboxing. Well, it's not. Yeah, I mean, not an unboxing in the sense of, oh, this is brand new. But in the sense of, this is, this is something to show you guys. I have the boxed set of Car Wars that Steve Jackson released a few years ago. Not so. Well, okay, Michael. Rated by, in the broad sense, no. In the specific sense, yes. In that the the Treasury Department showed up and hauled off a bunch of Steve Jackson Games computers. I can't remember if it was Alan Hammack or if it was Jim Ward and I were talking about this on show, but Top Secret got TSR a visit from the FBI. They some of the notes from an in-house Top Secret game that were thrown in the trash were found drifting around on the streets of Lake Geneva, and it was an assassination mission that the characters were to foil or to carry off or something like that. Someone found them, thought they were really talking about assassinating someone, a political someone. I don't know what'll happen if I say a name, but anyway, causing the death of someone. And so they got a visit from the FBI, and they explained, look, it's just a board game, here's what we're doing, etc., etc. And that was the end of it. But yeah, Steve Jackson Games actually had the feds show up in their offices and, we're taking this as evidence, that is evidence. You go, we're going to go in that room and we're going to interview you, and you people stand over here, nobody leaves, and etc. I mean, it was a capital R raid. And I can't remember that. Somebody tell me what, Wild Cards made fun of the incident at GURPS. I think you mean, by GURPS, I think you mean Steve Jackson Games there, Michael. But I read 2 Wild Cards books that were kind of entertaining, but I think I quit after the 3rd. But anyway, Mr. Groove's mentioning his Harlem Globetrotter character. Now I can't help stop thinking, how would you Hero System stat the Harlem Globetrotter character from the Harlem Globetrotter cartoon who could pull anything out of his fro? He had this giant fro and could just reach up in and pull some useful item out of it, which is ridiculous on its face, conceptually, everything. I think it's Cosmic Power Pool, something like that. Yeah, I was not expecting what I got when I read Wild Cards. That was no. I was like, oh, okay, this is people with superpowers. I read it in my 20s, and I still don't think it was age appropriate. Yeah, especially the story arc with the astronomer. Presto's hat is just made of hair. Yeah, there you go. I did like the one. It was like an interlude or something that it was in one of the books, but it was written as if it was written in the gonzo journalism style of Hunter S. Thompson, and it was written like it was Hunter S. Thompson writing about these people in New York, hanging out with them. It was pretty entertaining. Fro of holding, yeah, a fro of holding. It's just a D&D bag of holding. It's just on his head and inside out. It reminds me of an interesting question once that my buddy Lance Hovermail asked. He said, what happens if you take a bag of holding into the extra dimensional space created by Rope Trick? What would happen? And I thought about that. Would it be like a portable hole in a bag of holding, or a sphere of annihilation into a portable hole, or a, you know? Yes, it was. The third book. I think we all know all about that one. Fortunato, the astronomer. Yee. Still, the astronomer gets his. So if you're going to go read him, kids, little spoiler alert there. The astronomer will get his. I started in kindergarten. Uh-huh. Sure you did. Oh, no, I see. I started reading at 16. I started in kindergarten. Yeah. I got you now, Grooves. Okay. It took me a second. Took me a second there. Like I said, a little bit of a brain short out. Let me see. Probably going to wrap up here in just a minute, guys. I am burned out. I am done being angry. And I'm not going to worry about this anymore today. I have said my piece. Other GMs have said it destroys both spaces, or the contents of the bag get wrecked. The way I guess I was feeling kind of it could be less than generous under the circumstances, was that basically you take the bag into the Rope Trick and it just empties its contents. Like the extra dimensional space becomes non-extra dimensional and it just empties all the contents out. So if you've got like the maximum bag of holding in your 1,500 pounds, 15,000 coins, or 1,500 pounds of anything else, say Fire Giant Night Soil, and you take it up into the bag of holding, or into the Rope Trick extra dimensional space, it might get really crowded up in there. So with that, thank you for listening to me rant today. It wasn't my intention. Blame it on Wizards of the Coast. Someone earlier says, this Mallory Bawol, ID City B-Tongue. Hello, this looked like a fake live stream. Okay, so I don't know who you were. Anyway. So, that's about it, guys. That's where I'm going to leave it today. Ending on a positive note-ish. Free RPG tomorrow. Go buy your FLG and ask them where the AD&D stuff is. Yes. Thank you, Aurora, for stopping by. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by and listening to me rant. I appreciate it. Love you all. I do mean that. You guys are the best. I have the best audience. And I just, before I go, let's see. I wonder if I lost any subs today from yelling my damn fool head off. Well, one. 805 subs on the channel now. Yep, we are 195 people away from having a miniature convention. So tell your friends, like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, click the bell icon for notifications. I'll see you guys Monday. Back to positivity. Y'all take it easy. Be good to each other.